Hello, it is June the 6th, 2013. What I want to talk about tonight is basically the mainstream media is missing out on a real big thing that's going on in society today, and what that is drug prohibition. Uh, you know, there's a lot of reasons that I think go into why drug prohibition is actually having this scenario played out where such a huge traumatic offense is happening and it's really being overlooked. I just got to watch television and to be honest with you, they're covering some pretty good relevant news even on the mainstream Bill O'Reilly. So I was happy in a way. He was talking about NSA. He was arguing on behalf of the fact that the NSA shouldn't be wiretapping. I mean, here's the thing. The NSA just finished a big facility, and I think they're actually listening to every recording in the United States, or who knows, something to that effect. But either way, the thing about it is the issue that's not being discussed adequately is that we're symptomatic of genocidal Holocaust. B, slavery. So between slavery, which I actually picked up a copy of a book that was written in like 1860, or I think I found it online. It's called The Great Conspiracy by founder of Memorial Day, John A. Logan. This guy lived in the late 1800s. One of the things I remember reading when I started glancing, just kind of looking through the book, was the very beginning. He mentions the fact that during the beginning of the Civil War, there was something to the extent of 1.5 or 2 million slaves, as I recall, somewhere in the range of 1.5. Well, in the United States today, due to drug prohibition alone, which is a proven fact to be, a farce, and there's plenty of statistics in my description you can glance through if you'd like to, but it's not just statistics. I mean, it's a liberty farce. It's, as I said, it's symptomatic of a genocidal Holocaust. A, B is outright slavery. Well, here's the thing. Due to this, we're experiencing somewhere to the effect of enslavement, greater than what we experienced during the Civil War. The numbers of people, I would put in as I've discovered, or as I've seen other people explain that they've discovered, is very difficult to get recent statistics from these official sources. However, I think the most recent prison statistics I saw for the entire United States is actually about 7 years old. We were 2.1, China 1.3. Okay, excuse me. Anyways, so China, substantially fewer people in prison than we have, and not only that, I mean, it's just here's the question: why is this not spoken of? And here's what my theory is. I was watching a documentary one time by Alex Jones, and he had discussed with some professor that he had just happened to encounter on the street concerning these drills, and he asked him what did he think of the drills, and he said, "Yeah, I'm a college professor around here. I know about this kind of stuff." And he said, "Well, what do you think?" And he said, "These types of things, basically, this is how it works, is acclimation." He gave it an example. He said, with a frog, you basically slowly increase the heat for a frog until uh, until the frog is boiling, and then it'll sit there and actually let the water boil it if you do it slowly. But if you do it fast, it'll jump out of the water. But if you do it slowly, you won't even notice. And honestly, I think that I think that it's actually possible, and it's not that I necessarily think it is possible. It's that I think it could be possible. And if this is the fact, then of course, it would be something that I would just need to kind of like just bring up, as much as I possibly could, and just try to re-explain to people, exactly, what it is that's happening in society. The fact that it really needs to be mentioned, a lot more. Here's the thing. If we don't, resolve this, it could easily become a situation where it's similar to, Nazi Germany. And as scary as that sounds, or unrealistic, I mean, you still have to take into consideration that, I've read recently that, it goes through the list of increasing punishments for these drug offenses, and and this is a book called the Why the War on Drugs Failed and What We Can Do About It, or something like that, by James Gray. But either ways, as it goes into it, he basically says, he explains at some point, capital punishment has been made available for certain drug crimes, and I didn't even know that. But here's the thing. It's getting so unrealistic. I mean, look, here's how it works. People are going to get to a point where they're comfortable with seeing people go to prison or get murdered. Well, if they're selling lots of drugs, right? Because the truth of the matter is that people are selfish, and they're interested in what's going to benefit themselves at all times, and the government by nature will tend to implode on itself. And I think that people basically understand that. I think people basically understand that, with the lobbying industry being the way that it is, that basically the government will always have a tendency to, sink to the lowest common denominator, because here's the problem, and I'm sure this has been a problem for a long time. Probably what led to the fall of Rome, if you think about it. If you want to become a powerful person, you have to have the backing of the people in business. Well, even if it isn't that situation, it can easily become that situation. So if you think about like other empires that have fallen in the past, you have to question and ask yourself why. And I think that it's probably a government's natural tendency for power to become, intertwined with power, of an economic sense or monetary sense. It just seems like that's really where the United States ever had a chance to succeed, was on the basis of a philosophical understanding that at this point in history we're actually attempting to learn from our past mistakes, regardless of how they might come to us, on the principles of just basically some founding ideas, documents put on paper, And it wasn't about, what you can do as a person in power. It was about what everyone, believe it or not, was willing to allow to occur. Even the people who are able or in a position to do it. And that's the only thing, man. And you know, it's either going to be like that or it's not, because governments are destined to fall. And we in the United States, when we wrote the Constitution, we knew that. So we said, look, we have to form a republic. And they said, okay, here's how we're going to write the Constitution. Everything in the United States Constitution basically is a series of, you can't do this, the government can't do this, the government can't do this, the government can't do this. And it's just an idea, and it's just going to be, it's going to be what people are going to allow, man. At this point, it should come a little bit easier. When this, due to a lot of the modern advances we're seeing here with technology, obviously we understand that wouldn't have happened during the Dark Ages, and it's because, so therefore it's easy to deduct that it's just the government, basically competing forces within a market. We've come to understand how these things occur over a long period of time. As well, just having something going here that's different, and so of course that's what I'm referring to when I say, that we're doing better. It's by what we can see has happened. But I can tell you this too. This this time is actually a lot different. So, you've got nuclear weapons. If the government falls into a situation of such horrible corruption, there's a possibility that criminals could get in control of the government. If criminals get in control of the government, well, if the government isn't run properly, if the government doesn't find a way to run properly, then we're in a lot more danger than we've ever been in the history of the world. There's a problem with too much trash. There's a problem with too much trash in the ocean. The entire system doesn't work as far as trash is concerned, and we're not even worried about who goes to prison and who doesn't. And I heard a guy give an example one time, and he used some kind of metaphor, but basically he said it's basically the indicator of who's in control. So I believe that's could be the case. And if it is, then you have another problem. Because if it's okay, something's in control that's not good, then even the people that are on the winning side of that, if their heart's desire was to see it end, it wouldn't even be able to, because it's what the group consensus is. If the group consensus is that bad people are in control, then it seems like it just seems to things just seem to break down, and the worse things get, now I've seen elections overthrown with little to no media fanfare whatsoever. I mean, I'm seeing stuff that I wouldn't ever imagine seeing in a third world country, barely, I mean, this is the kind of stuff, because I just wouldn't imagine somebody making a video and putting it on the internet and explaining to people, I've actually seen elections simply overthrown with just a dictatorial command. that was read off a teleprompter, and it was documented and put on a local news station somewhere, but the main stations never touched on it. No radio station touched on it. It was just like it never happened. And it's just like, man, it's just like, do you even understand how bad it is here? Like, I'm living in the most prison locked down society on the face of the planet, and there's no respect for nothing when it's that scenario. People don't even recognize it. We're going to hell in a handbasket. I mean, this entire country is gonna seriously just crash, man. And we're already crashed. I mean, to a large extent, we're already crashed. I can't even lie. When prohibition ends, because it will end, it'll either end in a bunch of criminals ending up in control in the Holocaust, nuclear Holocaust, that'll wipe out mankind. Does that sound like fun? Or A, or B, there's at least a possibility, okay, that right now it's of course is gonna, every year more people go to prison for this. It's unsustainable. First of all, we spend more money. There's more people in prison for drugs than there is in prison for all the other crimes combined. So if you think about how many people are going to prison for this, we're not going to be able to economically sustain it. That's the problem. And that's going to bankrupt the country, and it's dangerous because there's too many nuclear weapons. It's dangerous because it destroys the rule of law. I mean, that's my conclusion, firm conclusion, and I know that for a fact is true. Because there you have it. It's just a shitty situation. It's just not good. Okay? Because you have judges that are presiding over cases that deal with the welfare of your family, sending people to prison for stuff for a long period of time, knowing it's not right. That's bad. Let me just spell this out to you. That's bad. THAT''S space BAD. That is bad. Do you understand? Do you understand? Do you even understand how bad? Okay, because I'm actually reading some of these statements from some of these judges, and they're saying stuff like, this kid went to prison for years because he had a little pot on him, and he's sitting there like, there was a case, all right, I just read, and this kid had like 28 grams. They found it behind the front panel of his car, or 27 grams. Then they got into jail, found out he had stuffed some weed up his butt. Turned out to be just enough, maybe a gram or two, to put it over 28. It went from $100 fine to 3 strikes, potentially life in prison. That's how bad, and that's exactly what I'm trying to explain. I'm trying to explain to you. I've read another judge's statement where the judge straight up sat there and said, we sit there and just send these people to prison. You know what I mean? For years on end. And the judge is basically saying, and they just sit there like they don't even understand why we did it. And you know what? It was written in an article that was against it, so the judge is sitting there like, this is just, it's unreal. Okay? Because do you understand? That's hardcore oppressive tyranny. Okay? That's what I'm trying to explain to you. When I was in high school, okay, met a guy who was a Jew from Nazi Germany, who had a tattoo on his arm of being a Holocaust camp victim. He claimed, as I recall, that everyone in his family died except him. and outlined a scenario where I think he said he had to steal food from a dog or something. I mean, it's the thing, man. It's just, you know, this is bad. You know, this is actually a gulag system, to be precise. And as I claimed before, symptomatic of a genocidal Holocaust. Let me give you an example. All right, with a genocidal Holocaust like Nazi Germany, they came into people's houses, busted in their house, took them away for reasons that were illegitimate. B, held them in camps for long periods of time. Okay. C, didn't feed them very well. There was something else. I'll just go with 3. Okay, 3 things. And then 3 killed them. Okay, well, with us, we bust into people's houses, take them away for reasons that are illegitimate. A. B, we do hold them in prison. But C, no, we haven't started killing people yet, but it just has come up on the table to do it. So then think about that. Not only that, people are getting life sentences for this scenarios as of right now. So illegitimately going and getting a life sentence. So that in and of itself is pretty much a death. Okay, let me explain it to you like that. It's pretty much death. And in some people's mind, it's probably worse. What ends up happening is you do 40 years flat before you come up for parole. And this is for drugs. I've seen it myself personally firsthand. I saw a case where a guy here recently got life for intent to sell. Intent to manufacture meth. That's unrealistic. That's unbelievable. Well, not to us, because it's been implemented slowly. That's a psychological precept. It's a psychological precept. So, imagine like the people of Nazi Germany. Imagine being alive in Nazi Germany. All the media suddenly is taken over. I remember hearing this when I was a kid. All the media got taken over. All of a sudden it went black about the Holocaust. Nobody talked about it. Millions of people were getting exterminated. You know? Nobody talked about it. Nobody talked about it. Nobody talked about it. It just happened. Well, that didn't just happen all at once. So, anyways, that's basically what I'm trying to say. But here's the thing: if you lived back then, if you were in Germany and you were sitting there and you were alive and you were looking around and you always, everybody thinks this to themselves when they're hearing about this. That's why it's such an interesting subject. That's why there's so many documentaries about it. That's why people like to hear about it so much, read about it, watch it. Here's why. Because if you were alive in that scenario, you wouldn't even be able to believe it. You wouldn't believe it. Oh man, this is unbelievable. Oh man, this is unbelievable. Right? Think about it. You know that's true. So then what else is true? It's happening right here to a large extent. Okay, here was my other point. With the war on drugs, there's homicide involved. There's a lot of homicides involved with drug prohibition related scenarios, all up and down Mexico, in the United States. Okay, so it is symptomatic of, like I said, a genocidal Holocaust. And so here's another thing. The most ironic part of it is that, as that is the case, here it is happening to a certain percent, you have to admit, to a large percent, right in front of your face. And there you are, used to it. So then why is it so interesting to you? Why do you turn it on? Why do you watch Nazi Holocaust Germany and get so intrigued? You should ask yourself sometime. You should just sit there and ask yourself, why is this so interesting? And then you'll realize, something else interesting too, if you think about it from this point of view. Hey, that's going on right now. So there's your answer. There's the answer you were always looking for. Remember what I was saying? How did this ever happen? How could this ever happen? I can't believe it. All those thoughts. I can't believe it. Well, here it is, man. Here you are, doing the same thing as they were. Used to it just as much as they were. So there's how. Government just beating people down until they just get whatever the hell they want. And people just give in to apathy. That's how. Sad. Idealistically, I think a lot of people like to believe that there's some place in the world that maybe at some point in history could rise above that and not let that precedent be set, because it's just too tragic. Anyways, that's all I've got to say for tonight.